Imagine being so poor that your entire family sleeps in a single tiny room. No electricity. No comfort. No future. Now imagine becoming richer than kings. Richer than governments. Richer than almost anyone alive on earth. That alone sounds impossible. But what happened next was even crazier. Because after building one of the most powerful business empires in history, he gave almost all of his money away. Libraries. Schools. Universities. Billions in today's money, gone. People called him a genius. Others called him a monster. Workers hated him. Students worshipped him. Politicians feared him. And hidden behind his inspirational rise, was a ruthless side that changed America forever. This is the unbelievable story of Andrew Carnegie. The poor immigrant boy who conquered an entire industry. But before the money, before the power, before the empire, there was hunger and desperation. Andrew Carnegie was born in 1835 in Dunfermline. At first glance, his life looked ordinary. But behind the walls of his tiny home, his family was struggling badly. His father was a handloom weaver. For years, skilled workers like him made decent money crafting cloth by hand. Then machines arrived. Factories started replacing human labor. And almost overnight, thousands of workers became useless. Including Andrew's father. The family's income collapsed. Food became scarce. Debt kept growing. And every day, survival became harder. Andrew watched his parents suffer constantly. His mother worked endlessly just to keep food on the table. And something inside young Andrew changed. He hated poverty. Not just because it was painful, but because it made people powerless. That feeling would stay with him forever. Then the family made a life-changing decision. Leave Scotland forever. Move to America. At the time, America was seen as the land of opportunity. A place where even poor people could rise. But the journey itself was brutal. The family crossed the Atlantic Ocean packed into crowded immigrant ships with almost no comfort. And when they finally arrived in America, reality hit them immediately. The Carnegie family settled near Pittsburgh. At the time, Pittsburgh was exploding with factories, smoke, and industrial growth. To some people, it looked like opportunity. To others, it looked like hell. Andrew was only 13 years old. But there was no time for childhood. The family desperately needed money. So Andrew got a job in a cotton factory. His job was simple. Change spools on giant machines all day long. Hour after hour. 12 hours a day. 6 days a week. The noise was unbearable. The heat was exhausting. And the pay was terrible. But Andrew never complained publicly. Because he knew something important. This was temporary. At least, that's what he hoped. Most workers around him accepted factory life forever. But Andrew wanted more. Much more. And this is where something unusual separated him from everyone else. After exhausting workdays, he studied. He borrowed books whenever he could. History. Business. Philosophy. Books became his secret weapon. While other boys slept, Andrew educated himself. And slowly, his mindset started changing. He no longer saw rich people as lucky. He saw them as strategic. That realization would change his life forever. But Andrew still needed an opportunity. And eventually, it arrived. Andrew eventually landed a better job. A telegraph messenger boy. It sounded insignificant. But this tiny opportunity changed everything. For the first time in his life, Andrew entered rooms filled with powerful businessmen. Railroad executives. Investors. Industrial leaders. He observed everything carefully. How they talked. How they negotiated. How they made decisions. But Andrew did something nobody expected. He memorized entire city routes faster than anyone else. Then he learned how to understand telegraph messages by sound alone. An extremely rare skill at the time. His bosses were shocked. Andrew was obsessed with improvement. And powerful people began noticing him. Especially one man. Thomas A. Scott. Scott became Andrew's mentor. And this relationship changed Andrew's future forever. Scott taught him something schools never could. How business really worked. How industries were controlled. How wealth was created. And most importantly, how power moved behind the scenes. Andrew absorbed everything. By his 20s, he was already investing money into businesses. Small investments at first. Railroads. Iron companies. Bridges. Most young men his age spent money. Andrew multiplied it. But nobody realized how ambitious he truly was. Because Andrew Carnegie didn't just want success. He wanted dominance. And soon, he found the perfect industry to conquer. Steel. During the late 1800s, America was transforming rapidly. Railroads stretched across the nation. Cities expanded. Factories exploded with production. Everything was growing. And every part of that growth required one thing. Steel. Strong steel. Cheap steel. Mass-produced steel. Most businessmen failed to understand how massive this opportunity would become. But Carnegie saw the future clearly. Then he discovered a revolutionary invention. The Bessemer process. Bessemer process Iterawexg steel production. This innovation allowed steel to be produced faster and cheaper than ever before. And Andrew moved aggressively. Very aggressively. He built steel mills. Bought raw material suppliers. Controlled transportation routes. He wanted control over every step of production. This strategy became known as vertical integration. Vertical integration equals control of every business stage. If competitors relied on outsiders, Carnegie relied on himself. That gave him enormous power. Soon, Carnegie steel was dominating the market. Railroads needed Carnegie steel. Bridges needed Carnegie steel. Carnegie controlled steel. Together, they became symbols of a new kind of American billionaire. But Carnegie's rise wasn't built on kindness. It was built on ruthless efficiency. Inside Carnegie steel mills, workers suffered brutally long hours. Accidents happened constantly. Conditions were dangerous. But Carnegie believed one thing above all else. Efficiency created profits. And profits created power. Every second mattered. Every dollar mattered. Workers who slowed production could be replaced immediately. Carnegie pushed his factories harder and harder. And the results were unbelievable. His empire exploded. He became one of the richest men in America. Then one event changed everything. The construction of giant steel skyscrapers. For centuries, buildings stayed relatively short because weaker materials couldn't support massive heights. Steel changed that forever. Cities began reaching toward the sky. And Carnegie became even richer. But behind the scenes, pressure was building. And eventually, it exploded. To maximize profits even further, Carnegie partnered with businessman Henry Clay Frick. Frick was ruthless. Cold. Aggressive. Exactly the kind of man Carnegie needed. Together, they crushed competitors and attacked labor unions aggressively. Publicly, Carnegie talked about fairness. He spoke about workers' rights. He presented himself as a thoughtful intellectual billionaire. But privately, Workers inside his factories experienced something very different. Long shifts, low pay, extreme pressure. And eventually, workers at Carnegie's Homestead steel plant had enough. Tensions exploded in 1892. Workers went on strike. And what happened next shocked America. Frick hired armed Pinkerton guards to crush the strike. When the guards arrived, violence erupted. Gunfire exploded across the factory grounds. Workers fought back fiercely. People died on both sides. Families watched in horror. The Homestead Strike became one of the bloodiest labor battles in American history. And suddenly, Andrew Carnegie's reputation began collapsing. People questioned everything. Was he truly a generous visionary? Or just another ruthless billionaire hiding behind good publicity? But while the public argued, Carnegie kept making money. More money than ever before. Until eventually, he became the richest man in the world. But then, he shocked everyone again. Because instead of expanding forever, he decided to walk away. By the early 1900s, Carnegie had achieved almost everything imaginable. Power, influence, wealth beyond comprehension. But he was getting older. And increasingly tired of business battles. Then one man approached him with an enormous offer. J. P. Morgan. Morgan wanted to buy Carnegie Steel. The negotiations became legendary. And eventually, a deal was reached. In 1901, Carnegie sold his empire for around $480 million. An almost unimaginable amount at the time. The sale helped create U.S. Steel, one of the largest corporations in history. And overnight, Andrew Carnegie became one of the richest individuals the world had ever seen. Most people expected him to spend the rest of his life enjoying luxury. But Carnegie had other plans. Very different plans. Andrew Carnegie believed something unusual. He believed dying rich was a failure. So instead of hoarding wealth, he started giving it away. Massively. Libraries appeared across the world. Schools were funded. Universities expanded. Museums opened. Scientific research received support. Carnegie believed education could lift people out of poverty. Just like books once helped him escape factory life. Over time, he donated almost all his fortune. Billions in today's value. His philanthropy changed millions of lives. But debates about his legacy never disappeared. Some people saw him as a hero. Others remembered the workers who suffered inside his factories. And maybe that contradiction is exactly what makes Andrew Carnegie so fascinating. He was both inspiring and deeply controversial. A poor immigrant boy who became richer than kings. A businessman who changed the modern world. A philanthropist who gave away nearly everything. And a ruthless industrialist whose empire was built on the backs of exhausted workers. His story isn't simple. Because real success stories rarely are. Ending. Andrew Carnegie proved that a human being can rise from almost nothing. And still change the world forever. But his story also reveals something darker. Success often comes with sacrifice. And sometimes, the people paying the price aren't the ones becoming rich. Still, one truth remains undeniable. A poor immigrant child once stood inside a noisy factory with no future. And through ambition, intelligence, and relentless obsession, he built one of the greatest fortunes in history. Every success story starts at zero. The question is, will you keep going when life gives you a reason to quit? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy real stories of struggle, ambition, and success, subscribe to Rise from Zero. Until the next story. Keep rising.